But the bottom line is this. Even the most liberal of scholars have agreed that the tomb had to have been empty. Jesus' tomb had to have been empty on Easter Sunday morning. Okay, it had to be. Even the official report was that the tomb was empty, but the report was it was empty for a different reason than what the disciples said later. It was empty because someone had stolen the body. See, an empty tomb by itself, that point of fact by itself tells us nothing about resurrection and whether resurrection took place. If the tomb was empty, and that was the only thing we had to go on, then probably the most obvious answer to why the tomb was empty was because someone robbed the grave. The body was stolen. And in fact, the official report was, yeah, indeed, that must be what happened. The disciples stole the body. Now, the disciples of Jesus, the earliest followers of Jesus Christ, their explanation for why the tomb was empty was that they had seen Jesus. And they had seen him alive. And in fact, they had to, now, I know it's hard for us to believe. And again, we think, oh, these gullible people, they believe anything back in those days. The stories over and over again tell us about how hard it was for them to believe their own eyes, what they saw. It's hard to believe, even when it's standing right in front of them. Now, you take away the empty tomb, and you just give us visions of people, visions, religious experiences, the things that they saw. They saw Jesus. They had dreams of Jesus. That's nothing unusual. Just talk to anybody at hospice. Anybody ever worked for hospice or volunteered at hospice? Or have you read any literature at hospice? They prepare you to know that it's not uncommon for people to see loved ones before they pass away. And also it's not uncommon for people who have lost loved ones to feel like they have seen or have very vivid dreams about their loved ones. As a matter of fact, my mother and I, after my dad passed away, the very same day that he passed away, which was Memorial Day 2004, that very same day, after his body was removed and taken to the funeral home, later that night I went and stayed with my mother overnight because I didn't want her to be by herself. And that night, me and Mama both heard what we thought sounded like my father in the middle of the night. Now, y'all know I'm crazy, right? You've already admitted. If I haven't made you think I'm a little crazy already, I have not done my job. And I'm related to her, so we can both be crazy. But even though we heard what we sounded like my father, and even though later on I had such a vivid dream that when I woke up, I realized it wasn't real, but it was so vivid that my dad wasn't really dead, he was alive again, not long after he passed away. I mean, it was real. I don't know if you've ever had those kind of dreams where it's just so vivid and so real, and then you wake up and you're like, wow. It's almost like, gosh, I'm glad that wasn't real. Had that experience. But those things alone didn't make me think that my dad was resurrected. Because we've got to remember, when we're talking about resurrection, we're not talking about something that does not involve a body. Resurrection, by definition, involves bodies, physicality. That's the only definition of resurrection that the early church and Jews of that day would have understood. To talk about a resurrection that didn't involve a body would be like talking about being an astronaut on a submarine or something like that. Just nonsense, gibberish. We're not talking about spirits and floating around. We're talking about a physical bodily resurrection. They saw something. And what they saw was Jesus. Someone who looked to be, but he was different. He wasn't the same. It wasn't just a normal resuscitation of someone who had died and then was just brought back then to die again, like Lazarus. But he was somehow the same, but somehow different. He was transformed to the point where it was even hard to recognize him. And maybe he could even withhold his identity in some way, but he was different, but he was the same. And they came to believe this is Jesus, and they said they touched him. They go to great lengths to make sure we understand. They didn't just see something. They reached out and touched him. They felt him. They saw the prints in his body. That, combined with an empty tomb, you put two and two together. What's the explanation? Well, I know that, see, there's a lot of, if you watch the History Channel, if you watch National Geographic, they'll have these specials with these experts who are going to tell you what really happened. Okay? Now, like I said, they've already started out. They've got their mind made up already that resurrection is not possible. So it's something else had to happen. But the problem with everything they try to fit into that gap, to explain what came before and what came after and what caused this great movement and this great faith. And these people to go out and proclaim that this guy who was crucified is now the Messiah, and not just the Messiah of the Jews. He's the Lord of all the earth. What fits? What makes sense? Put two and two together. It's pretty simple. And nothing else fits in its place that makes any sense of what happened. You can try, but it just doesn't work. The truth of what happened is he was raised from the dead. I was sitting with a man, longtime church member, grew up in the church, baptized as an infant, grew up in the Methodist church, went off to Johns Hopkins and almost had a PhD, but traveled the world all over doing something for the government, and sat in his living room and sat with many others. I know this morning that there are skeptics among us, and I have been there, and I'm sure you have too. We've had doubts. We've had struggles to believe. So what? The other disciples did too, even the ones that were that close to him. But we were sitting there, and I sat with others who said, I just can't believe in the resurrection. I can't believe in the virgin birth. The Apostles' Creed, I believe. In the virgin birth, I believe. In the resurrection of the body. He said, I just can't believe those things. And I said, well, let me ask you, and I'll ask others too. What about the first part of the creed? I believe in God the Father Almighty, who created the heavens and the earth. Do you believe that? He's hesitantly, but said, yeah, I believe that. I said, well, let me get this straight. I said, you can believe that God created everything that we see, all of the billions of people and all of the animals in every various form and insects and stars and galaxies and millions of, just amazingly how awesome and large and expansive our universe is. For every grain of sand on the seashore, for each grain of sand, just think about a grain, hold your hand out and just imagine a grain of sand in your palm of your hand this morning. And for every grain of sand, there's about a million stars at least. And for every star, there's a million galaxies that's made up of billions of stars. And just think about you. If I know we've got this other story going around that it's all one big accident. But look, if I told anybody that I found this after an explosion in a plastics factory, and that this all came together by accident, this simple thing right here, you would say, you're crazy, man. You're nuts. Or if I were to just get you a simple paper, I did this with kids, if I just made a simple paper airplane, and I told you there was an explosion in a paper factory, and this paper airplane came out of that explosion, you would say you're crazy. Yet, according to so many people in the scholarly world, in the scientific world, I'm the one who's crazy for even suggesting that the story that all of this is one big accident may not be right. So if you can believe in a God, if you do, And this is what the real struggle was. He was having trouble believing in the God who could do that. In a God who was really a creator, an intelligent being, a personal being. Look, if I could believe, it would be like saying this. Yeah, I believe humans can build cities, but they can't build birdhouses or a mousetrap. Yeah, humans can build vast cities all over the world, but they can't build a mousetrap. The resurrection, less than a mousetrap, for a God who can create all that we can see. Now, I know maybe, right now I'm literally preaching to the choir, right? If you're like, get on with it, quit, we know all this, why we believe this. I doubt it. Because if we really got it, and if we really believe it, it can't be sort of kind of silly, maybe important. You understand what I'm saying? Are you getting it? If you think I'm nuts, I'm okay with that. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. If I'm challenging you, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm not here to make you comfortable with lukewarmness. I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to lull myself to sleep into thinking that's what we're called to. There's something so much greater. We should be on fire because of what God has done in Jesus Christ. Because it's true. It's true. And if it's true, it can't be kind of sort of important. It's got to be of ultimate importance. And we have to see all of life through that. We have to see life through the cross, through the resurrection. And believe that this God, what this tells us is that this God that we believe in is very, very personal. Very personal. Wants a relationship with us. Is intelligent, has emotion, compassion, justice, righteous anger, indignation. Will judge us for the way we live our lives because our lives really do matter. We're not going to be the ones who have the final say. He is. And the simple message of the gospel is just, for Jesus, is just simply this. Just trust me. I'm not calling you to go out here and blow people up. I'm not calling you to go out and hurt people. I'm calling you to love your Creator. Acknowledge Him. Worship Him. Praise Him. Give Him your heart. Give Him your all. And love your neighbor as you love yourself, and even love your enemy who mistreats you. If there is a God, we better pray that He truly is revealed in that man, Jesus Christ. Just trust it. Just believe it. Because it's true. And it makes all the difference in the world. And in the world